Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 37 of Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. I am your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmer, and joining us now, the Beat the TV champ from Smoky Mountain Wrestling, reigning and defending, the one and only Bobby Blaze. What's happening, Bobby?
Hey, look at me, man. It's me, Bobby Blaze, and I'm on TV. Hey, I've got one for you, Professor.
Yeah.
All right, here you go, man. Hey, Herb, turn down the radio. You're at your mom's house. Okay, little backstory, okay? But if Herb's out there listening, so we're getting podcast is over, man, especially this area. More and more people, I'm getting more and more stories from this area, on my local market, I guess. But my brother, he's a chaplain for hospice, so he gets out a whole lot and sees a lot of people and does some hospital work and stuff. And apparently, we've got a lot of people that follow us here, and it's a really good feeling. But I guess one of us, or maybe both, because it hasn't happened this particular episode. So, hey, Herb, listen, turn your radio down. You're at your mom's house. Fuck! Here's a warning. F-bomb coming. Fuck. Okay. Now, I told him the other day, I told my brother, we're actually trying to clean up the show a little bit with the F-bombs, but apparently this gentleman was listening to the podcast, and the wife had to tell him, because she told my brother the story. She said, I had to yell in there, hey, Herb, turn down that radio. You're at your mom's house. And I guess he's listening to the podcast full blast, and you and I are just dropping the F-bombs like this. And, I don't know, maybe for whatever reason, the mom didn't want to hear them.
Yeah, there's been a time or two where we've carpet bombed the room with F-bombs. So, yeah.
Anyway, I thought, you know what, that might be a good way to open a show. Give one of our fans a shout out. I don't know them, but there are a lot of people out here listening, and we're finally getting seems like we're getting into a groove of things. And the last few episodes have been really, really good. This episode, we hope, is going to be just as good. We've had this one in a can for a while as to what we was going to do. It's going to be on a top 10 referees. We've kind of thrown this one around for several weeks now, but of course announcers came, and then we did Black History Month. Then we had an interview with William. Mm-hmm. Thank you, William, for coming on the show, by the way. But yeah, we finally got around to the referees. And Jeremy, you just kind of maybe tell the people, if you don't care. All right, folks, we understand there's more than 10 referees in the world. So Jeremy kind of set the perimeters up, if you will, Jeremy, how we do this kind of thing. You know?
So, I do want to preface this a little bit. Our YouTube page has been blowing up lately. I mean, we've got more than 70,000 views on our Paul Orndorff bit.
Yes.
And there's a handful of guys, man, that pop up over and over again in all the videos to say, oh, this person's too high or too low. And you see them on almost every video when you go through. The same guys saying that time and time again. And guys, we know that. This is not, I mean, the way this works is Bobby and I come up with an idea, and then we talk about who's going on the list, and we literally get out like a check ledger and start trading back and forth about who we're going to keep and who we're not. And keep in mind, Bobby's an author. We're here to sell you books as well, So sometimes we gear our content to reflect what is in the books. We know that some people sometimes, I've come off of a list. I know you and I have both had this feeling. We've finished a list, recorded the episode, and then we listen to it and go, well, fuck, how was Bob Caudle so low?
Yeah.
How did we screw that up? We know, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to comment and say everything. Please keep doing it. Please keep giving us thumbs down if that's what turns you on. But, guys, trust us. We know that sometimes our numbers are goofy. Bobby, did I handle that properly?
Yes, you did, Professor. Yes, you did. So with that said, you know what? We're here to sell books, and we're talking about referees. I'm just going to, what a great little segue you fed me there. I'm going to read a little something out of my second book that's available. It's called I Kicked Out on Two, The Educational Wrestler. It's available at tinyurl.com/blazebook2. Okay, just throwing that out there. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to read a sentence here about referees. This is a little story called Questionable Tactics. It's about 6 pages long, short little story. But a quote I'm going to use here is a Jim Cornette quote from Rags, Paper, and Pens. Okay, the most maligned thankless job in wrestling is that as a referee, but it is a necessary job, and there would be no matches without them. So even though a referee may not always see every infraction of the rules, these men deserve thanks from both the wrestlers and the fans. And guess what? We're going to be talking about our favorite 10 referees, and you can also get Cornette's book using tinyurl.com, BB Rags. And while I'm at it, go ahead and go to tinyurl.com/Bobby or Blaze Book 1 for Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel. Guys, if you purchase the books through there using that TinyURL, Jeremy and I, we get a little bit kickback off the show. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It's just a quick shortcut to get to the Amazon page, and you can help sponsor and support the show that way, and we appreciate that very much. Did I handle that okay, Jeremy?
I think you did beautifully, Bob.
Okay, you got the honorable mention referees, because I've got a couple of stories, and we'll go on from there.
I do, and this one I'm going to just say that my honorable mention is Dangerous Danny Davis. For my experience in wrestling, when I watched it as a child or teen, Danny Davis was the first referee I ever saw go heel.
I think you're right, man.
And it carried, like, when you started seeing like little dirty calls here and there, and eventually blew up into full scale chicanery. It blew my mind. It blew my little professorial mind.
All right, Dangerous Danny Davis. And you said anyone that had that Dangerous name, you really liked that too.
Yeah,
I know you cheer for them heels, you old heel prick.
Absolutely.
So I had a couple. I'm just going to tell you a couple of stories just real quickly. I went to the Monster Factory before I got into business. I was trying to, learn how do you get into professional wrestling, and I've set up rings, whatever. So I went up to New Jersey, and this is years ago, many, many years ago now, of course, 'cause I ended up going to Malenko School. I found my footing there, but I just went up for this little type tryout little thing, and there was several referees there, several wrestlers there that, was on the up and coming, because they're just starting off. They're in training. It's what it is, training school. But one of the people that stopped by was a referee, and I didn't know he was, because we didn't really get WWF TV back then.
Right.
But I drove over from Baltimore over to New Jersey to where it was at. When I came home, my uncle was asking who all I met, and I told him some of the wrestlers, and I'm not going to mention them now. Some of them went on for careers, some of them didn't. But I mentioned this guy's name, and I said, and I met this referee named Dick Worley. Dick Worley. And my uncle went, Dick Worley! Oh my God, you met Dick Worley! He popped more because he was such a WWF mark at the time. And he knew that was a name, because the other guys he didn't know. They might have been up-and-comers or whatever. He never knew it. But he popped for that referee, and I thought, well, hell, he must be a good referee then. So I'm going to give Dick Worley a damn honorable mention, even though I just met him one time. And, of course, I saw him after. I knew to look for the referee. But my uncle popped for him, and I thought that was pretty good. The other one I'm giving is a guy named Sandy McGee. It's a young guy I helped train many, many years ago. And he wore these thick-ass Coke bottle glasses, man. And, he couldn't see anything. So, and that's a straight shoot. He couldn't. And so I gave him the name Sandy McGee, the blind referee, And so that's just – he traveled the roads with me a lot of times, and we had a lot of good times up and down the highway. And I always just kept waiting for that 1, 2, 3 count. And right when he got the 2, maybe he'd just pop up and not count the shoulders down and rub his eyes and look at the glasses and say, hey, the subscription ran out, the prescription ran out, or something stupid. But he was just a funny character to travel around with. And that's my other shout out, because we know the referee, if there's not a referee, man, we've talked about it before on other podcasts, that they're an important part of the show. We're finally getting around to honor some of these greats in the world of professional wrestling. And sometimes it is a thankless job. So, and they don't see every infraction, but that's okay. That's all part of the deal, man.
Oh yeah.
We're going to honor them here. Do you have anything else to say before we go into our top 10? Is there anything I've left out there?
We're
prefacing the episode.
we're going to cover the specifics, but I do remember there was a point, when I was watching WCW, during its heyday, and I believe it was Pee-wee. Okay. And that is when I realized how integral a referee is to a match, to the storytelling, to the pacing, and to setting up the tension in the ring at that time. And before then, I'd never picked it up before. So for me, the referees are truly the unsung heroes of storytelling in wrestling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to honor some of them, daggone it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, how about starting us off with number 10? I know this comes in from Tex. You kind of, if you want to preface this with number 10, and I'll kind of tell my part, or however you want to do it.
Sure. Well,
we wasn't real sure about this one.
Yeah, let's just roll right into it. Number 10 is Sonny Fargo.
Yes.
And please do note that he is a Fargo. He's, was Roughhouse was his other name?
Yes. And that's what Tex sent me. I knew him, didn't know him personally, but recall him being part with Jackie Fargo over here in the Memphis territory as Roughhouse Fargo. But apparently, he'd come out of the nut house a couple of times a year, and he'd have his hair real long, crazy, whatever. Well, it wasn't real long. I'm just the blonde, whole thing. And would act like a crazy man. They'd sell out, I guess, Memphis, Louisville, Evans. I guess everywhere they went on a loop, I guess they sell it out for a few weeks. But little did I know, something was happening on the other side of the Appalachian Mountains down there in the Carolinas. Maybe you could fill us in on what Tex sent us on that, Jeremy.
Well, yeah, so on one side of the Appalachians, he's Roughhouse Fargo. On the other side, he's a referee. Apparently a pretty important one. Now, one of the problems you run into with that regional wrestling from before a time period where I could pick it up on UHF, there's a lot of these guys I only know of like in a legendary status. I've never seen a lot of the stuff they did. I've only ever heard about it. And Sonny Fargo and the Fargos in general are kind of in that department for me.
Yeah, me too, actually. I mean, that's the thing. Over there, apparently, he was the mild-mannered, white-haired referee,
Mm-hmm.
But over here, he was a wild man out of the nut house, know. So, and a lot of that's just like yourself on that part of it. That's just stuff I've heard later on. I don't recall, seeing him referee. And maybe if you go back on tape or something and see it, you can see him refereeing probably within the same year. Doing the old white-haired, well-mannered referee calling the most important matches at the times. And then on the other side, a couple weeks out of the year just being a wild man over in the Memphis territory. So anyway, hopefully got that right for Tex. We're just kind of giving that to Sonny Fargo, and for all of our fans that listen to us down in the Carolinas and that area and the old Memphis fans. We're going to be touching on a lot of different people in this, and so we just kind of threw that one out there, and we put it together for Tex that does our graphics. So kind of giving him a shout out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we appreciate that. Number 9, how about that? Tim White from the WWF during the 80s and 90s. Tell us a little bit about Tim.
Well, Tim White was, I believe he started as, or, that the way he got noticed or came to attention is he was Andre's assistant and driver.
Yes. And
so he was Andre's right-hand man. I remember Tim, especially from, this is going to sound so fucking stupid. They were doing bits of him trying to commit suicide and failing miserably. And these are the things that stand out to me. First off, just because of the callousness of doing that. And secondly, because, God help me, gallows humor gets my funny bone.
There you go. Yeah. Well, the thing, I remember in refereeing, but I didn't know until maybe the late 90s when they started some of those shows. I guess they do like on Biography or A&E channels and stuff, when they start doing these biographies on Andre and stuff, that, Tim White was actually his right-hand man, like you said. I just knew him as the referee on TV every week, all through the 80s and 90s and stuff. But apparently he had a lot of important decisions were made back in the back with him. I'm sure he sat on production meetings. Like you said, he refereed probably so much on TV, you just look up and get used to seeing a guy. But I didn't even know his name because, they hardly ever – sometimes there was a phase there, and I know they do it now. I don't watch it, but I hear, and that is they don't even mention a referee sometimes.
Right.
And I don't like that. I think what you said earlier about how important referees are, I think it's important that you say, referee in this match will be and sanctioned by, the NWA or whatever they say. They should be, this match is refereed by, your official for tonight will be Tim White or what have you. That to me, I do miss that part of it. That's kind of going back to the territories of, like you said, you got a character on one side, that you may not have seen. He's working heel one place, face another place, without all the internet. And like I said, even starting with UFW TV or whatever, UWF TV rather, when you start picking those things up or here, so you had, you had magazines or what have you, you didn't know. But the referee, that's one of the things you need to let your audience, your TV audience, because I know at the house shows, I always found it important that when they announce this guy's the referee, I don't know why, maybe because me, it's just, I'm a traditionalist. You do it in boxing, you do it in MMA. I mean, UFC fucking does it. They, who doesn't know who Big John McCarthy is? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pull on this string a little bit here.
Yeah, please do.
I heard recently that when AEW ceases to be just a t-shirt company and actually starts putting on matches, they're going to have stats and everything before the fights.
Okay.
I think it's very important. Look, I get it. Kayfabe's over. But I'll tell you what, every indie guy I talk to says, I can't make you think wrestling is real, but I can make you think I am real.
Yep.
And that is what they're shooting for, is they don't, they want you out of the moment when you're watching them. They don't want you thinking about how this is a bullshit match. And for my money, the way you do that is you treat it like an actual sport.
Yes.
And saying who the ref is and letting the ref have a little personality. And you're right, they've become kabuki stage set managers more than anything else now.
Yeah. Well, I like that idea, and I hope it works, because I know, like when I was in Japan, that to me, I just answered a fan question the other day. They asked me about the competitiveness of the Japanese wrestling, and that's what I kind of answered them, was they still keep it competitive, and that's the old Johnny Valentine saying, I can't make you believe wrestling real, but I can, damn sure make you believe I'm real, and my match is real. But if they do that, like the magazines and even the newspapers over in Japan, they would put in there, Bobby Blaze won, like I'd be like 3-0, and then I'm getting ready to wrestle maybe a Sasuke or whatever. So they see it and they read it, so, it's just big American, he's won 3 matches in a row. So when you do wrestle the top star for that promotion, the Japanese, it's still competitive, and I hope they do that, man. And again, the referees, the stats, and if for nothing else, while you're watching that, you've gotten away from the believability is what it is. You got to make people believe, and they can suspend their belief for just that hour or 2 hours of the show, and enjoy it for what it is. I think we all seeking that. I think there's a lot of guys on the indies. I don't talk to a whole bunch, but I talk to a select few when I see them, and I get that same vibe, man. They still want to put asses in seats, and they still want to get out there and have good matches. And I see referees doing the same thing. I've trained a couple referees, as mentioned, and I think these young people, do a good job at that. I hope the what is it? What do you say?
AEW, all elite.
AEW.
Yeah.
So I hope they sell a few T-shirts, but hopefully they get on TV here soon too.
Yep.
And become a wrestling company. I know people are saying that all over the place, but I wish them luck, man.
I do too. I think it's better for everybody when there is competition, when there is a choice in the market, when there is other stuff to watch. Not only that, look, I mean, the fact of the matter is WWE is going to get better because of it. They're going to have a larger talent pool to look at. They're going to be able to do more things better, and they're going to have to not sit on their ass as much.
Yep. Everyone will up their game. Competition does that for you. Yep. Guys want to get noticed. They still want to get caught up. That gives them another option for other young guys to go to another organization to find work in a field they love, professional wrestling. And that goes for ballets and managers and referees, all aspects of it. So, hell yeah, let's see if they do it, though. Well, let's get back on track, though. With
Absolutely.
Coming in at number 8 is Bill Alfonso, Fonzie. He is, I didn't know this actually, the Cuban assassin, Dave Sierra. I met the original Cuban, Angel, and David got the permission to use him. Fidel Sierra, got permission to use that name. Well, Fonzie is his cousin. I didn't know that, but I met him when I was down in Florida. He worked for Championship, Wrestling from Florida. And then, he's worked at all the major promotions throughout the North America, basically, or at least the United States, I should say. But I met him several years later again when he was Taz's Sabu's personal referee. I'd done some shows you was talking about earlier off the air. I used to do some shows up in Cleveland area. I'd do 3 or 4 days, a little loop up there. And Sabu come in, and they'd bring in ECW guys. They'd bring Smoky Mountain guys, this and that. But Fonzie was still refereeing then, and he was Sabu's personal ref. Of course, a lot of people remember him later on in ECW with the whistle, and I think he managed Taz. Then he ended up managing Sabu and all that. But he actually, if I'm not mistaken, don't fact check me if you want to, people can. He may have been on the first Starrcade, if I'm not mistaken, as a referee too.
I don't know.
Pretty sure about that, but I know he's been around forever and a day. Like I said, I met him in Florida a couple of times, and then I haven't seen him for years, of course. I actually talked to a couple of people that knew him away from the ring up in the Charleston, West Virginia area, and so I hope he's doing good now. Hope everything's going good, but I know he was a very popular referee, so I just thought, hell, put him on the list. Bill Alfonso.
Yeah, well, and he was definitely a guy who got his extreme, extreme wrestling was really his niche. And
yeah.
I can't find it now, but I did see somewhere that Bob Roop is his stepbrother. Maybe.
Oh, is that right?
I think so. I need to double check because I found it earlier, but now I'm not seeing it. But he's a guy who is from wrestling.
Yeah.
Did it. I think I remember him. Was he with Van Dam for a while?
Yes, he was.
And that's what I remember was him, flinging around outside the ring, blowing the whistle, acting like a lunatic.
That's him.
Yeah.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, also when I was doing this, and again, you can fact check this. I'm not asking you to. If you want to, that's fine. And if the fans want to, that's fine. They can use the hashtag BBBB. And you can find Jeremy on Twitter at the Geekish Cast. You can find me on Twitter at Bobby Blaze 744, or you can go to the joint account, which Jeremy has done a wonderful job at. We're almost at 2,000 listeners and followers off of the Twitter page, and that's Bell to Bell Blaze. But on there, if I'm not mistaken, he actually started off, I think one of his earliest matches was refereeing Terry Funk and someone else in kind of a hardcore kind of match. I don't know that.
I think it was the Sheik and Terry Funk.
Sheik and Terry, yes, that's what it was. So I saw that and I thought, you know what, Jeremy will probably find that out. And if anyone else wants to fact check it, please do, man, because we had several people contribute to this list. I had a couple more people I didn't mention my honorable mentions on this list, and I was like, I'm getting a whole lot of people coming in that want this person on the list or want that person on the list. And I know that's going to lead to my next one. So did you have any more things else to say about Alfonso there?
Oh, no, I think that pretty much covers him.
Yeah.
He's really a guy, you just got to go watch it to see why he was a fun ref. And refs were fucking lunatics in ECW and XPW where he works, where he really cut his teeth. They were insane.
Well, that's going to bring us number 7. When I said the fans helped on this, I knew if I had this person, I wasn't sure if I was going to put him on the list or not. I mean, I was, but I didn't know where. And people, you all hit us up. I don't know how much was on the Bell to Bell Blaze or page or podcast page. I know of mine, I got a lot for Jerry Calhoun, man. A mainstay in Memphis. He's a friend of Jerry Lawler's, and man, if you watched Memphis TV at any time, you would see Jerry Calhoun as the referee to all those huge matches that took place, whether it be he done TV, house shows, everything. And I thought, man, our fan base, if nothing else, because a lot of them wrote in about several of these guys that we've mentioned and we're going to mention, and I thought, excuse me there, if I leave Jerry Calhoun off, our fan base is going to be hot. How did you fucking forget or miss? Hey, Herb, turn the radio down. I'm dropping F-bombs. But, yeah, how can you not watch Memphis wrestling and not know that name? Because you talk about what we saw about territory days and talk about knowing your referee. People knew this match is sanctioned by or brought to you by or what have you, whether it be an AWA or back in the day, NWA sanctioned by whatever, but you knew the referee was Jerry Calhoun, so that's pretty much the referee that, as far as I know, and he may have worked for NWA or WCW or something, I don't know, but as far as I know, he stayed busy the entire time Memphis ran, and I don't know if he went anywhere else other than that. I could be wrong, but I know he was a mainstay on all those Memphis and did all the house show towns, and he did the loops and, TVs and everything, man. So that's why he's number 7. I don't know if he could have been any higher, but I knew, by God, he better be on that list because we're going to have some hot fans if he's not.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and you brought up that he was a guy that came in with Lawler because he was one of Jerry Lawler's friends. And to me, the Jerry Lawler thing is always amazing because Jerry Lawler got into wrestling because of his artwork.
Yes.
And became one of the biggest wrestling stars of all time. And it all started with drawing wrestlers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Fargo connection there, and all of Memphis, I mean, hell, that's why he's the king, man.
Yep.
But think about people that were his friends too. I know we're not talking managers, but like Jimmy Hart and other wrestlers. He had cousins that wrestled, and he had referees that were his friends. I mean, fuck me, man. Maybe ask the ticket, in Memphis. That's why he's the king,
Yep.
But anyway. So Jerry Calhoun, you make the list, man, and I hope I made a couple people happy, and Jeremy did by putting him on a list and keeping him on it. And otherwise, a few of you guys that wrote me would have been hot, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, well look, and look, we know to expect hate mail after a top 10 list. It's just part of the gig now. We're gonna go to number 6.
Yes,
with Randy Pee Wee Anderson.
All right.
Now, of course, he was one of a handful of referees that were just like in the ring all the time at WCW.
Yeah.
He was like, him, there's a handful of others, but we're talking about him right now. This is a guy who you didn't notice he was in the ring, but you knew his name every time he was the official in the ring. He was also one that he could sell the shit out of everything happening in the ring too.
Yeah, he'd had that gimmick down good.
Yeah.
He was involved in the match the way a referee should be involved in a match. Like you said, he was seen, but he wasn't seen.
Yep.
He done his job, but he was invisible. That's the way it should be, man. So that just helped string along. Of course, he broke in. He was an amateur wrestler, and I knew that because he talked to me a lot about it when I was there. I had actually met him before I signed my contract. I used to go to some house shows and talk to some of the guys. He was one of them that was always pretty nice to me. And he broke in for Arn Anderson, though, and a guy, Teddy Allen is the one that broke him in down in Georgia, I guess Rome, Georgia. But I knew Ted. I bought a ring off Ted many, many years ago. And Ted worked all over Georgia, and Memphis and WCW and all these different places. But he's no Georgia boy. And I guess he got Arn and Pee Wee and a couple other guys are start back in the day. And I guess Pee Wee he was only like 119 pounds, it said, for his state. I know he wrestled, but I don't know at what weight, but I don't know that he was much more than 119 pounds with his refereeing. Thus the name, Pee Wee Anderson. And that's our number 6. With that said, Jeremy, I'm going to give a cheap plug and do all 10 through 6 if that's okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, you mentioned earlier about that YouTube page, man, blowing up. Man, we've got like 1,600 subscribers, and we appreciate that. Orndorff video has like 70,000, like you said. But there's so many others on there of the legit badasses that are hitting 2, 5, 7,000 views, man. We appreciate that. Always when you go on there, here's what you do. Go to YouTube. You just type in tinyurl.com/BB video. That'll take you to the YouTube page for the Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze podcast. Also, what's very important, what's smart me up to this week, Jeremy, not only do we want you to subscribe, hit that like button, man. Give us a damn thumbs up. And you know what? If you don't like it, give us a thumbs down. That's fine, too.
Yep.
And if I don't read the comments, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I have other people that tell me, I don't want to hear it. Because I don't want any personal attacks on Jeremy or myself or text or anyone doing it. But you know what? You sure as hell can go in there and voice your opinion, and that's fine. But the main thing is subscribe and like it, man. With that said, again, it's tinyurl.com/BB video. and give us subscribe to us, give us a like. We're doing the top referees in a day. It's our top 10 list. If you don't like it, hit us up. There's a YouTube page, there's a Facebook page, and there's Twitter at the Geekish Cast. Bobby Blaze 744 and Bell to Bell Blaze on those, and use the hashtag BBBB and say, you know what, I didn't like your top 10 or I loved your top 10, because number 10 was Sonny Fargo, also known as Roughhouse Fargo. Tim White came in at number 9. Bill Fonzie Alfonso come in at number 8. Jerry Calhoun come in at number 7. And Pee Wee Anderson, that you just heard, was number 6. And I want to move on here to number 5 with one of my favorites, man, Nick Patrick. I'm going to let you talk a little bit, Jeremy, because I just went on a big rant there, and I didn't even drop an F-bomb that I'm aware of.
No, we kept that pretty clean. I was kind of shocked. Yeah. And Bobby, just not to correct you on air or anything, but
what I do?
Well, you said that we have 1,600 likes. We actually have 1,782 subscribers on YouTube right now.
1,782?
Yeah, we're about to hit 1,800. We'll probably hit 1,800 by the end of the day. So no, it's look, I got to tip my hat if I wore one to Tex. He has done a hell of a job putting these videos together. Yes. I got to thank the fans out there for checking it out. I mean, we're almost more YouTube show than we are podcast at this point, Man. Yeah, I mean, what did he broke it down the other day and said that means that every minute of the last 3 weeks we've had 12 people listening to us.
Hey. Let's get that to 20, then 80, then 100.
Yep.
Who knows, man?
Oh yeah, I went and had lunch with a friend of mine guy that had produced a couple of animated shorts and stuff back in the day, and he's pitched a couple TV shows. He's like, you and Bobby should put together a show and pitch it to the WWE network. I was like, you might be onto something there. But that being said, let's talk about Nick Patrick for a minute, because he, and who was the other person I was thinking of, but I thought we should form a trio of the three of you and call you the Mississippi Mudflaps, just because you all rocked that mullet at that time.
Mullet, yeah. I don't remember if you put Ricky in there or Tommy or someone, but yeah, I can't remember who it was you put in there. I recall that though. Yeah, he did rock the mullet, man.
Yeah. He was also the second referee I ever noticed that went completely shit-faced heel on people.
Yeah.
He was the NWO's personal referee,
That's what it was, yeah. Yeah, hell, I was there. I didn't pay attention.
Oh, you had your own shit to worry about. I was just,
right.
Like I said before, I was just, some jack off at home watching wrestling. That's what I paid attention to. The stories,
Nick was a good dude too, though, man. Nick hung out with the Armstrongs and old Georgia boy, and he's a good old guy, man. And I hung out with Nick a lot because I hung out with the Armstrongs a lot back in the day, and we just got along really good. He was fun to be around. Of course, his dad was Jody Hamilton, one of the original Assassins. Mm-hmm. But Nick was smart to the business at an early age, and of course the Armstrongs being second generation wrestlers too, man, just full of knowledge. You can learn so much, from referee telling you this. He was the one. Don't forget, I was victim number 67 of Goldberg.
Uh-huh.
He was the one that refereed my match against Goldberg. And when I got in the back and everyone, checked everything was good and stuff, and Nick said, "Hey, Bobby, of all the matches Bill had," he said, "I haven't seen him spear anyone like he speared you. By the way, your boots are out in the middle of the ring." And I like that because Nick and I just had that, friendship and
I went back and saw that. He fucking hit you like a truck.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Nick was a good dude, and he's a hell of a referee. And I think he finished. I know he went with WCW. He Crockett's and Georgia and WCW and all that. But he did go to WWE for I guess 4 or 5 years there before he finished out his career in the ring. But hats off to Nick Patrick for the coming in at number 5, man.
Yeah. No, he was good because he was one too that. I mean, you noticed him more during the heel turn, but he was a guy that even when that wasn't going on, he was one of those guys that would, finally get fed up with the villain and kick their hand off the rope or, I mean, not as much as somebody else we'll talk about in a little bit here, but, he was a good one to watch because he could, he was integral to storytelling, which I think is the point I'm trying to drive home about the referees is that you don't notice them till you notice them, and then it's usually something monumental in the match.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the following guy.
the following guy, man, most people are going to remember him for one thing, if nothing else. But, and I'm going to let you talk a little about that, because I understand that you had to apologize to the entire nation of Canada at one time. But anyway, we'll get to that. It's Earl Hebner, and, he's a senior referee for the World Wrestling Federation / Entertainment. He's went to TNA. He's been after that, he's been to TNA. He's been everywhere. Mostly, though, we'll go with the, being with WWE since 88 through 2005, Yeah. And he's known for what, Jeremy? Because that's going to draw some heat, and them people in Canada, and you being a Bret Hart fan like you are, so.
Well, he is really known for the Montreal Screwjob finish.
Exactly. Yes.
But can I remind everybody as well as the Montreal Screwjob, he or somebody who looked just like him gave the dirty call to make Andre the Giant win over Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
quarter and a half, man.
Yeah, that was a nasty one, because I remember they went as far as to say that Dave Hebner was somebody else who had plastic surgery to look like Earl Hebner. Yeah. I would say, do you think Earl Hebner is the most recognizable referee in wrestling?
I think it's safe to say that.
Yeah.
You think about all the pay-per-views he done through those years, let alone been on all the weekly programs, that worldwide reach that the WWF, WWE had. I dare say you're probably right. He's probably the most recognizable off this list. And I say there's a lot of places he's went through the years that he did not go unrecognized. Airports, car places, any town or restaurant he went in, I would imagine he was just as recognized as some of the biggest stars in the company. They had to have known. He was on TV too damn much, you know what I'm saying? Well, and in too many big matches on pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely ubiquitous with the WWF.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people actually watched TNA during any point that he ref there, so I don't know if that would add or take away.
Yeah.
But I can clearly picture Earl Hebner when you say his name. I know exactly what he looks like.
Exactly, me too. And that's why I briefly missed the TNA, because I was just like, once I say that, I remember him being there for a hot minute or whatever, but most of my memory is going to be, WWF. FE, whatever, and exactly what the guy looks like. I think that's real safe to say, man. Most recognizable, easy on this list.
I think so. I think out of any list, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you, man.
Yeah. So and that Screwjob, that Screwjob finish, man, that thing's gonna live in infamy forever, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it will.
Whether or not I suspect it of being bullshit, Well.
Oh man, hot damn, man, you just killing them, man.
Well,
Oh man, well, let's move on to one of my personal favorites, man. A man that Mike Monaghan has called the hardest working man in WWE on the crew there. This guy was a big fan of Ric Flair. He took after and learned from another NWA referee. I'll just leave it at that. But he had a tryout the same night I did in WCW, and he's still going strong today, and that's Charles Robinson, man. This guy, Charles Robinson, he had his tryout in Charlotte, North Carolina back in the day, man. And, man, he's just a really good man, a good, decent dude. Takes care of his body, good-looking guy. Yeah, I'll give a little bromance there to him, man, because he's just always been a straight-up fair, good dude, and he's a hell of a good referee. I was just telling my brother the other day, he goes to the building and he sets up the ring, oversees the ring crew, gets on the tour bus, goes town to town, flies back out. Man, he's a hard-working dude, man, and he's a first-class human being, and that's what I want to say about Charles Robinson. So if you hear a little bit of me, bromancing there, it's because I am so happy for this guy, because when I first met him, to the last time I saw him, which has been a couple of years ago, I'm so happy this guy's living his dream, because I know he loves the professional wrestling business, and probably about as much as I do, Jeremy.
Yeah. Well,
he is.
That's the thing, too, is that these referees are usually guys who signed up to become wrestlers but were too small or just found the niche in refereeing. But they're guys that are like you, Bobby, grew up loving wrestling and wanting to go into wrestling, and then they got there.
Yeah. And that was Charles.
Yeah.
He knew people. He was telling me different little things about like people we knew. And it's like one of those things where you just kind of mark out for each other, like, oh, because we was there trying out. And we both like got a job the same night and stuff. So we had that connection. We'd always talk. And of course, I didn't realize at the time how big of a fan he was of the Nature Boy. But they even shot an angle with him, him and referee, doing the little Nate.
Yep.
He had the strut down. He even lightened his hair even more. I bleached it at that time even more than it normally is. So he's had a good run though. When I talked to him, I know he's got a few more years. He wants to stay on the road doing his gig, but just one of those people that you're happy to see something good happen to. When you hear that thing, when someone deserves something or something good happens to a good person, he's one of those people. But I'll tell you what, he's worked his ass off and he's put his miles in out there on that road to do that job. And I respect it that someone has that passion and they get a chance to live their dream and to succeed in something they really love doing, And that's my old buddy, Charles Robinson. So I think he's on WWE Robinson or something on Twitter. I have to look him up. We follow each other, but I might have to give him a shout out and tell him, Bobby Blaze, put him over. Would you do that for me so I don't have to go to him and say, Charles, you know what I did? No, because he already knows if something's good, if someone's going to say something good about Charles Robinson, it's going to be me. So that's my number 3 pick, Charles Robinson.
That's a good one. I used to love anytime I'd see a match was coming up with Ric Flair that he was going to be the ref in, because I knew Nature Boy was getting kicked or stepped on by the ref at some point, because, dirtiest player in the game has got to have a referee that's willing to shove back and take no bullshit, and
that's right.
And when you saw that he was in the ring for it, you're like, oh, Ric Flair's got it coming now.
Yep.
You're not going to be able to get away with none of your shenanigans, Mr. Heel Champion.
That's right. Well, all right, Charles, you got a big plug there on the Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze podcast, but we're going to have to move on to number 2 and number 1. And number 2, for you keeping scores at homes, that's going to be my good friend and the late Brian Hildebrand, professionally known as or also known as Mark Curtis. Mark Curtis. And he got that name honestly.
One of the best referees to watch in any match ever. The way he would roll backwards over a guy in a hold to check the other shoulder and then leapfrog back over him to check the other shoulder. He would get down in the business. He was the first person I ever used the sentence, he speaks referee perfectly.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, because he was like a mime in his ability to get across.
That's my gimmick.
I know. But he could get, he was a little guy and you could see him from anywhere in the arena when he was trying. No, it was only a 2 count. And you knew exactly what his calls were. You knew exactly what he was doing, even though he's a million miles away and you couldn't hear him. Just his physicality in the match, his passion in overseeing the match. Everything came through and it came through perfectly. And, I've never understood why he has 2 names. Was he on the Lamb?
Okay. So Brian Hildebrand's his shoot name,
okay,
or what do you want to say, but his wrestling name, like I said, he come about it honestly. Mark. He considered himself a mark for the business. He loved the business. He's one of them guys we talk about that has the passion for the business. He broke in to be a wrestler, and believe it or not, he could actually do some work. We used to work out some before the matches in Smoky Mountain. We'd always do a 50 to 100 to a couple hundred Hindu squats together. We ran steps together. He was by far my favorite referee because, like me, he loved the business and he was getting a break right when I was getting a break, and so. And then Curtis, he took that from King Curtis. That's where he took that
okay.
From. So he broke in with Dominic DiNucci, trained him up in Pittsburgh area. He broke in with the franchise, Shane, and also with Mick Foley. He was in that group of guys, and he finally got a chance to break out and Smoky Mountain. And, man, he was a valuable asset there in Smoky Mountain because he was doing everything, and he still was working his full-time job, and he didn't miss either from my understanding. But, yeah, Mark was – he just considered himself a Mark, and then the Curtis came from King Curtis because he was a great speaker, and he's old school. He loved that gimmick, that name, and that's how he became became Mark Curtis, and feel free, please add some Mark Curtis stories if you'd like to. Everyone loved old Turtle, man. He's just a good old guy, and when you was talking about, I was going on my head when you was talking about the mimic and the mime. You knew what was going on the top row or the front row. It didn't matter. But in our matches, I had this thing with him. I trusted him so much that on that 2 count, that if I didn't get my shoulder up, and I would go with him to 2 3/4, and I knew exactly when, just from him being in that ring, when to raise my shoulder in those matches, because we just had that working connection together. And I trusted him enough that I was going to get that shoulder up before he hit that mat with 3, so he could pop up and give the office. That was only 2. You know.
Yep.
And he was a small guy, and he was agile, and man, he could get around. And also, I just thought of this while I was telling you, he's also one of the few referees I've seen do, and it got over. He done spots on some spot shows with, like, say, the Rock and Roll Express or Wrestling Heavenly Bodies or someone like that on a spot show somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
They would do if Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson maybe would do a leapfrog, Brian would be at the end of it and maybe take a leapfrog from Tom Pritchard or something. Like if Jimmy Del Rey's running under a leapfrog and then Ricky goes up and Robert goes down, Mark would be there, like, you know, out of position, but he really wasn't. So he'd go ahead and do the leapfrog, and whoever's in, Tom or Jimmy or whoever, they'd hit the ropes, you know, after he went underneath his legs, and the fans would pop on a house show like that, just giving him something extra, you know. So, yeah, Mark Curtis, man, there's only one reason why he can't be number 1, because, you know, and that's going to lead to someone that he admired and also helped him once he got to Smoky Mountain. We mentioned of Charles Robinson. I about gave it away then. It was NWA referee that's going to come in at number 1. That's who Mark Curtis learned a little bit from once he got to Smoky Mountain, and he took his style from. And I'm going to let you introduce him. And if you don't know by now, as being a fan of his show, if you don't know who Jeremy's going to say, then I don't know what to tell you. Quit listening.
Well, number 1,
quit listening.
The number 1 referee in our estimation, and in Jim Cornette's and everybody else's too, from what I've heard, is Tommy Young.
Absolutely. Tommy Young, man, he had that unique style. He did that urgent sliding onto the mat. That's where Mark Curtis got that thing from. That's where Charles got the stuff from for the 2 counts, the pantomime, the, you know, right before you get to that mat and you're, like I told you, you get ready to get your shoulders pinned and you have to kick out. Well, Tommy Young had those facial expressions, that body language you was talking about, like Mark Curtis had. He was able to sell the wrestlers move, man. He would express the pain when someone had him in, you know, if Ric Flair had that figure 4 on Ricky Steamboat in a big match somewhere, and then he would show the frustration, like he'd be, you know, just, I'm sitting there trying to fucking sell to my computer. What are you doing? You know, but anyway, Tommy Young was number 1, man, because he set the standard for the NWA, for Crockett's. I met him briefly, you know, when I was coming in Smoky. He was finishing up. Him and Stan were actually leaving, but he helped Mark a whole lot. I know Charles took his style from him, and I know, you know, I don't know how many people through the years go back to Nick Patrick and some of the other people, those old NWA guys that grew up watching that, Pee Wee and all of them, man. Tommy Young is the number 1 on the list. I don't have a surprise Freebird rule to pop out or nothing like that. Jeremy, if you have anything else to say about it, that's our number 1, and I'll give us a brief countdown of 10 through 1.
I was going to say, you know, Tommy Young right now, for podcast listeners or wrestling podcast listeners,
don't go there. You was telling me something. Go ahead. You was telling me something. I just was like, I didn't know that.
but on the What Happened Wednesday, Tony Schiavone's show with that Conrad Adelson or whatever that guy's name is.
Okay.
They're one of their best-selling T-shirts is a Tommy Young shirt, and
is that right?
Yes, and it involves a story about the Barbarian, making some demands of Tommy Young.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. It comes up, or when I was listening to them, it came up quite a bit on there.
Okay.
But, you know, when you listen to a lot of classic wrestling podcasts, like our show, like Jim Cornette and, you know, those guys over the 605 Podcast Network, you hear Tommy Young's name quite a bit, but,
yeah,
I think he's been out of the ring for a little while, so some people may not remember him, but it's funny to me that his name is going into infamy now for this joke, they tell. But yeah, you're right. Off this list of people we were talking about, like 3 of the people from the NWA, area, you have notes in here that say, modeled himself after Tommy Young.
Yeah.
And these are great referees we are talking about. So, when great referees are using your style, it's because you were a greater referee.
Yeah. And,
I think that's amazing. This has been a fun list, Bobby. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, it's been great, man. We try to have fun with it. We know that. Man, all I can say is, I know we're getting ready to close out here. I'll let you close us out, but I just want to say again, man, hit us. I know there's a Facebook page. I'm not on there. There's a group there. Jeremy can tell you about that. You'll hear it at the end of the show or whatever. But I just know, man, that the Bell to Bell podcast on Twitter is doing good. I know the YouTube is blowing up. That just blows me away. I can't. I'm gonna say it one more time, man. Just go to tinyurl.com, BB video. That'll take you to the YouTube. Follow Jeremy on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube. Subscribe or follow the Bell to Bell Blaze podcast. But these lists, I learned so much from them. I learned so much from Jeremy from them. We learn from each other, and we learn from the fans, man. So just keep plugging us along, man. I think we've got a hell of a podcast. And hey, Herb, if you're listening, turn down the radio. You're at your mom's house, you bastard. That's all I got to say, because I didn't drop too many F-bombs today. I am trying to do better, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop for good. That's just for this episode, probably.
Well, we
wasn't a lot to cuss about. Wasn't a lot to cuss about.
Yeah, we got a letter from the upper floor here at Bell to Bell Towers kind of saying, hey, guys, we need you to clean it up a bit and hit a wider audience. So we're trying, but we're not trying real hard.
That's right. That's good. That's good, Professor.
Yeah.
I like that, man.
Oh, well, Bobby, thank you for joining me again. It is a pleasure as always.
Our pleasure, yes.
Yep. And everybody out there, for myself and for Bobby Blaze, thank you for listening. It has been our pleasure to put this show on for you, but it is your pleasure to listen. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Bell with Bobby Blaze. You can follow the show on Twitter at Bell to Bell Blaze. You can also follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyBlaze744 and Jeremy on Twitter at The Geekish Cast. To purchase one of Bobby's books, you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook1 to purchase Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots, Will Travel. And you can visit tinyurl.com/blazebook2 to get I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler. To donate to the show's podcast hosting fees, you can visit GoFundMe.com/Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. Be sure to include a hyphen in every word in Bell to Bell podcast hosting fees. If you follow and listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. Be sure to share the show with any wrestling fan you may know, and get on the Facebook page where you can keep up with Bell to Bell fans just like you. Again, thanks for listening to the program, and look for the show again next time.